Hello and welcome back to the Geek on My Sleeve channel. This is Geek Out 103 Watcher's Repose by Sean Oswald and book 4 Life in Exile. It in my humble opinion, the best one of the series, though I'm probably a little biased just because I'm so invested into the characters. Hey, Sean Oswald himself. Thank you for joining us. Uh, had you muted there if you were trying to say things. Yeah, so couple reasons why it's my favorite. I guess, sorry, spoiler-free-ish portion at the beginning here. If you have not read the book, um, there is a link in the description to support the channel, and the bias or the way that this one is different than other lit RPGs is it brings the whole family involved. Typically, it's someone who is heavily invested in MMO RPGs or just, RPGs in general, and it's just one person brought in. For this one, it brings a unique family dynamic element. Book one, where family all together, typical family events going on, and giant portal, and we're all brought into a new world. Um, yeah, and there's a lot of growth and development that wouldn't have been possible if they were in the real world, as well as it's the writing style is kind of hard to classify and very unique because normally you get either a plot driven book or a character driven book, and this one is uniquely both. But at the same time, there's not like one main character because each of the family members is more or less a main character. So, yeah.
That's one of the many things I really enjoy about this series too, is it's so rare to have a book that is able to follow so many different points of view so well. And for me, that's part of what made this book 4, so much fun, was getting to really hang out more with the kids, right?
You could tell there was a learning curve on Sean, just, being brutally honest, as I often am. Book one was great for the multiple seeing things from multiple perspectives. Book two, I'm sure you've heard it, was a little hard to track. And for anyone who wants to get into the series, my best advice for book two is become one with the machine and
Uh,
marathon mode it and listen to it all at once or read it all at once, and it's a lot easier to follow. But there were a lot of very good reasons for why it had to happen that way, and it was about just how much we were expanding the world that we know and the
mhm.
character development and having each of the different aspects. Book three, mm, beautiful, great power advancements, getting more and more into the unique skill
The
sets and
world and the magic
abilities.
system and the class system is just so much fun with the potential there, especially with breaking out of your typical class role structure, right? Like ninja priestess, magic tank, you know, befriend all the different creatures and everything. Our little girl has wings now.
Yeah.
Um,
Real
yeah,
quick, Sean himself says, "Well, I say that I cringe at the stuff in the earlier books," and that's being like book four,
it,
beautiful, amazing. Like I understand why you did it in the earlier books, and you can definitely tell that the writing's gotten a lot better and more streamlined. But
yeah,
it's definitely
well,
worth reading to get to this point.
it's a series for a lot of reasons. I think we've both requested or suggested it for people to kind of gateway into lit RPG because it is
Oh
learning
yeah,
curve
it's
wise, like really good for that. Book book 2 and 3 and 4, there was so much going on and so many point of views and scattered everywhere that yeah, it's a lot better to binge it. That way it's all there and you can keep track of everything. here in the well, I guess we do have a couple different break-offs, like when um
Or
Jackson's at school and we
for book
have
4, I felt like there was 5, maybe 6 main breaks, and even from 2 of them. Yeah, anyway, so we had Jackson at school when
mhm,
he's with the. Okay, I'm not going to remember names, bear with me. The princess from the other area, and they're in the sewers, and we meet the one of the subordinates to Simeon, the evil voice in our head. And then we have oh I'm a little teapot, short and stout. But instead of a handle, it's all my monster friends. Um,
Sarah.
Sarah. Then we
Yeah.
have Sarah and her Drake and Snowball and Kring.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Our goblin, and that arc
She,
is unique in the way she's
she was a lot of
advancing.
fun to follow this book and just her character development,
Yeah,
and how well she's adapted. Like getting like book 4, everyone's kind of coming to peace with this is their new life now, right? And Sarah, she just adapted so well, right?
yeah.
Here she
Well,
is
she didn't,
getting her.
and that's kind of the. It happens earlier in the series because book 1 we get the
Mhm.
person who has knowledge of games being constrained by his preconceptions or his thoughts that he had of video games and how they should work were holding him back from
Right.
adapting and seeing his believing element of you're actually here.
Mhm.
But then we also have the other side with Lady and Mary, or the mom, where she's kind of overthinking it and overanalyzing it the other way, where she kindly finally comes out of her shell for this one. But yeah, then we get oh, Dave, right?
Yeah.
Dave, our main guy, and you get to see all the different epic things that he's building up. And then we get to see, oh, I'm a fire in my lasers. Um,
Mhm.
I'm gonna,
Our meta mage getting
yes,
the
our
whip.
meta
Yeah.
mage and her advancements and getting her whip, and then we get to see Lady Amiri with. I'm thoroughly excited with the arc involving the half human, half Trent or Treant person.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
Yeah, and then she
Yeah,
also
our
does her little
minor.
solo mission, and
Mhm.
then we get the goblin attack, and then back for the oh I'm a human being controlled by Simeon, get advanced a tier, black goopy business into
Right.
spider battle.
Right. And we're
So yeah.
starting to find more and more of the master's plan
Well,
and
so
our.
that's what I need to go back to the other books because it started off with the Watcher's Test, where we had this
Mhm.
other entity that came in and was with an entity that was stuck there. And then they decided to come together and to bring a family, and they had their own set of rules where, hey, this is just going to be a test. We're going to give them extra aid, blah, 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 this and that.
Mhm.
Well, I believe it's book 3 when the guy or the watcher who came in decides this isn't what he wants, this isn't going to work, and he pieces out. So now it's just the one, but we run into kind of like this weird sense of being throughout this one, and it's more involved for like the prologue where it's someone who was active in Aloria that may or may not be a watcher or be a human from another realm that has somehow is dead, but death is not eternal
We're
and
we're
is
talking
playing.
about the master, Simeon's boss and everything, pulling the strings?
I'm thinking that's who it is, but I'm also thinking that's not who it is. Because
Okay.
I almost felt like they were two separate people, or maybe I'm just not tracking. There's a lot there, and
The
I need
rereadability in
to
this series
go
is
back.
great
Yeah,
because there is a lot of the earlier foreshadowing, and then the excerpts to bring things together.
want to say Sean, thank you for joining us yet again. Oh, you click it. Lol, want to say things, but spoilers. And
Yeah.
I that at least tells me that A, you've written a good book where you didn't give us all the answers. It's not like I could have written it myself. And B, that it's interesting enough to get me to contemplate and to think
Yeah.
about future possibilities. But I'm really enjoying that. Sidestep.
The
That's one
foreshadowing
thing
is done
that
really well.
Ascend Online, that's my biggest negative against it, is they have kind of like a creation and destruction hero
Hmm.
god arc, but then it just like dies off and doesn't go anywhere, and it hurt my soul. But the rest of it is amazing. Anyway, back to Watcher's Repose, book 4.
This was a great power up book, and the character
Oh,
development was
oh,
just
oh
so much
man, so
fun.
much power.
And getting to see some of the payoff was very satisfying with the Nelson family and everything they're doing for their little settlement and merging the communities together. Lot of fun. The deal with the dungeon where they're getting like 8 times, 12 times, I forget what it was. It was for every 12 hours in real time, it's something like 8.5 days. So Dave is going in and power leveling our groups and training everybody up. They're all getting freaky, something like 7 um, pregnancies for the moon elves, which it's like,
Or that was because of our sponsor. That was because of the
and the
Patreon
potential
and
for a second sponsor. And here we
uh,
have
uh,
everybody showing
like
them like, hey, see what we can do together. Um,
I yeah, so this one did really good for expanding and solidifying Jackson's power, and he definitely had a great 2, 3 arcs throughout this book. Where the
mhm.
first one, protecting the queen, or not the queen, the
Princess.
princess, that's the word, yeah, and
There
ambassador.
there's some potential foreshadow there.
Uh,
We're awful with names, apologies, Sean. But like the uncle from across the sea, our Griffin rider, who
yeah,
is keeping an eye on him, and then to have the voice in his head kind of like tease and taunt him, like you're just not seeing it, like he's not realizing what's going on. The princess is falling for him. He's making comments, just being a teenage oblivious boy, and referring to something his father says about pulling pigtails of the girls. Thank you, Princess Gianna. Um,
okay.
and yeah, so like the potential there, this series, there's so much potential because we've only been in Aloria for a certain amount of time. Um, Name of the next book is An Unwitting Prince. Almost done writing it.
Ooh. I was gonna say we got a book
Nice.
in between there because I think you're already done with 5. It's just not audibleized, right?
Um,
So that's
the au-
technically 6.
the Audible production is really well done, and to see, yeah, what if Jackson and the princess relationship
Or
continues to develop? Like we might have to. We're watching the kingdom around us crumble, right? Go ahead.
so there are so many divergent arcs. Or meh.
Okay,
No, this is 5. It got pushed back, sadly. Okay.
it happened.
Yeah,
We're
well,
we're
I
enjoying it.
I rather you realize stuff needs to be done, or like, I understand life happens and goes on. Yeah, it's still currently selected for instant buy and continuing the series, but life's weird sometimes. Speaking of which, daylight savings, yeah, whoever's in charge of that, if you could just cut that out. Um,
Uh,
as the great song by Mode Step says, the sunlight hurts my eyes anyway, and I'm tired of resetting clocks, and why people probably also
yes,
got lost somewhere in
happy
the time
daylight
void.
savings time,
Uh,
everybody.
but yeah, so
So
there are so many beautiful arcs that I want to expand on that have been set up. So one that I was sad about in this book, we didn't see much of the Minotaur. We got a brief like, hey, Mira, since you're learning the whip, you're gonna get training from the elf, as well as Rakar, which I don't know why I can remember his name. Rakar is a champion or a
because Minotaurs are awesome.
yeah, and so we got a snippet there at the end where the Minotaurs are supposed to be coming over and invading. So that is going to be expanded. It was primarily in book 3 when Dave got the spell book, and the note in the spell book was from the person before the Exile title of the series, Life in Exile, from the
Hmm.
other plane. Our giant spider guy is from the other plane. We had the Watcher come over from other space of existence. Our guy, so there's a lot of potential for portal traveling, I would think, if not just
Yes.
expanding. Then goblins, honestly, they're a fodder mob. They're still a fodder mob. Not too concerned about them. But we have the orcs, and we have our half orc, Valeria. Anyway, I
Yeah, ends
can
up becoming Lady
I
Mira's
can
first
paint
knife. Yeah, yeah,
magic.
yeah.
Um,
We have
who
so
becomes a
many cool
blade,
side
and
characters.
we didn't get to see a whole lot of the elves in this one.
We did get to
Everything
see
that
some of
we
the sun elves though, and we know
there was a
that.
snippet, yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we
So
know
that's going to
we've
be
got
interesting.
the princesses who has a whole kingdom that is different, where there's not the male prejudice, all powerful. We have the elves who have their circle, who apparently got infiltrated, who may or may not be working with Simeon's master or whatever.
They pretty much have a mole or somebody within all the major factions as part of this council of
Well, yeah, because I want
conspirators
to say it was book
with the
one
guy who's been
where,
betrayed twice so far, right? And we all want the Nelsons on our team.
yeah.
They're a rare family who has magic. Like there's a scene where
Oh, we got
Jackson's talking
so
about just like
powered up.
how, yeah, yeah, like they
Like,
worked
they
for it. It
already,
wasn't just, pop a
eh,
senso bean and we're there. It's
no, but
let's
like,
let me
they
show you
have,
how being a video gamer is going to save me and my family's life. And while I'm doing this epic MMO, I'm also going to do some civilization builder. And yes, please, Sean, continue the series. It's really scratches my epic fantasy itch because of the scaling of everything we have going, right? Like we're focusing on building up our core party with their supporting parties and raid dungeons and all this stuff. And we're just started out as a family fighting crocodiles on the shore, trying to figure this stuff out, to having a settlement with more tier 3 people than anybody else, largest
well, we
territory,
started off
decided not
as
to take the crown, but
the
gives it to my
sheriff,
bro. Yeah, starts out as a sheriff.
becomes the
Um,
duke, gets extra lands, becomes a half and half, gains a patriot or patronage. And so,
mhm,
like, between our patron boons that we have now, being able
mhm.
to go up a tier, and the 100+ points, which is quite a lot, and then on top of getting that dungeon
Well,
boon to where now he doesn't have to worry about dying a horrible death early.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so thank you again, Sean. Says at least 2 more story arcs, 6 books minimum. Thank you. Don't worry, it will get finished. The publisher already picked up the next 3 books. Yes, please, and thank you. And to keep going on that scaling and potential and how well the world building has been up until this point, we learned that like tier 7
For the
level cap
dragon.
60 is this plane of existence. But if we pay attention to the previous books about like the Grand Migration or like Exile, I forget exactly the exact term, but everybody came to this plane. And then we have like our dozen Earth people pulled to this plane as well. And 60 is the cap here. If you start going to the other planes of existence, the potential there.
Oh, so it's an expansion, and that's when the level cap gets raised.
I'm just
Okay, I
saying, like
gotcha.
after you cap out in your grinding zone, your farming, you get through all the storylines, everything's gray and green. You got to go to the next plane of existence and realm and get out of the barrens, regardless of how good the Chuck Norris jokes are. And
I remember there
yeah,
was one that made me think of a Chuck Norris joke, but I don't remember which one it was.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So Jackson did great, taking out the frog lock, saving
I
the
was about to say, what'd you
princess.
think about that? His little side quest there. Up until that point, it's very much a
I
journey of like he went from the bullied to I got the princess
Or it
freaking
was
paying
at the
attention
end
to
of
me.
3 when he was getting power leveled, so I knew there was
He
going to
went
be
from
drastic
0 till
changes.
19, right?
Also, I probably subconsciously knew he was going to be epic, just because when you say
When you
Jackson
say
and Monk
Jackson,
or Chiropractor together, it's been done in another series. Not saying that's where this came from, but in my mind, it was probably like a subconscious connection. Um,
yeah.
he has a lot of potential. My biggest concern is for the voice in his head because Lady
I was
Amiri
about
currently has her immunity due to her chosen one status.
mhm.
Dave has had more resilience since bonding with the dungeon, so to speak, or that was my interpretation. Jackson does not have, as of now, the potential to bond with the dungeon because it is to, Dave and Amiri. And then,
I don't. Sorry, go ahead.
or yeah, so I guess really it's just the 3 kids that, because a lot of his fighting is overly successful due to his ring of fluid movement, because maximizing everything.
Hey Thorben, thanks for hanging
Thorman,
out.
long time no write. I don't write anything. I just
Uh,
speech to text it.
that's true.
That's
Yeah,
because I cannot spell to save my life. Um, Grammarly for the win.
Grammarly
Uh,
for the win.
so another random side note, in this book, they have the snippet, and I wish I grabbed it, of David Nelson's tombstone.
Yeah,
So, granted, time and space is a thing, and another reason why, if you haven't picked up this book, you should. I want to say 3 and 4 do it best, where it's like a snippet at the beginning of each chapter is
mhm.
a quote. Yeah, great. A lot of great, just general life lessons, as well
Love the good
as
quotes.
he does a good job kind of like it's a way to like prep you to go into the chapter where quotes in a sense can be abstract, but if you take that quote and apply it to the chapter, it makes a lot of sense for what's currently going on. There are not a whole lot of authors that do a good job with that, where they give you a
It's
vibe or a feeling or bring you in and then walk you through it. Another one that I really enjoy that's not the same is, oh, spell blades, giant spaceships, and dragons. I'm trying to think of it. Chris Fox. Chris Fox does great with his chapter titles,
oh,
but for him, it's kind of like a forehead smack where it tells you exactly it's what's going to happen, but you
mhm.
don't know how it's going to happen, kind of deal. Speaking of quotes,
Sean says Simeon's master is the first introduced in one of the quotes in book one. And yeah,
uh,
the foreshadowing there and the rereadability to go back. And I saw you on the Audible app going back and listening. Did you get through some of the earlier books before this stream?
no, I
No.
wanted to.
There's a
I
lot
forget what I
there.
was specifically looking for, but yeah, there was one of those causal connection things.
Yeah. Definitely a great series with the foreshadowing and the scaling. And I just finished a stream yesterday, did a buddy read with a couple friends over on Chaz's channel with Dune. And if you guys can't tell, we have a book Audible obsession several hundred books later. And the author's voice and the narration um, can just like make or break a book. And in Dune, one of the comments that we shared was like the omnipresence, where it kind of like shares everything, and the story is not so easy to do. But it gives you kind of that insight. And with this story, we go through so many different main characters' point of views. And then with the watcher and with those little excerpts, we can kind of get that omnipresent, larger perspective of like, hey, um, gosh, I'm trying to think of a good example, but just like um, chiming in on the different characters. Thorben says, I just found the storyline. Um, it's a very fun series.
I think it's still fairly young too. I don't know when one came
Mhm.
out, but yeah, Sean's been putting them out at a good pace.
I think we picked up the first one. It probably was on one of the sales, and then we quickly picked up the next two. Just so much fun. And the potential for how this could scale on a large scale. Like we're seeing some of those larger scale battles, right?
Yeah, and then there are
Our
just
ship to
so
ship.
many questions because
Hmm.
the series is Life in Exile. All of the people who live here were exiled from another plane. We're seeing that some of them, book
Wow.
one was released April 2020.
2020.
Yeah, so I think he said five got delayed, but still,
Still
that's
year and a half,
potentially
five
five
books.
books, year and a
Yeah.
half. Yeah,
Thank you. Thank
that's
you.
great pacing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so everyone here has been exiled, but does that other plane of existence exist still? I assume it does. What happened there?
There's a lot. And we kind of build it. Sean says two books will be out in 2022. An unwitting prince,
And then I don't know what the oh
a temperamental enchantress.
hmm
Oh, three books out in
ah
2022.
that's okay. It just keeps getting better and better.
Uh,
I was gonna say, so Unwitting Prince is probably Jackson, potentially, and
mhm.
then oh, Temperamental Enchantress is Mira.
And then she who befriended monsters is our
Is
Sarah.
Sarah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we're seeing that right with Jackson and the relationship there. Um, Thorben said, found this story on Audible and asked myself if I should buy the first 3 books as a bunch offer. You guys are talking about it. Help. Yeah, glad to help you make the decision. And good plug. Since we picked it up, he's come out with a 3-for-1, and definitely recommend just picking up all 3 of the first books for 1 credit. Worth it. Worth it. And the audible narration is just so well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to getting more of the kids' story arcs and seeing how everything goes. How soon before we just everything breaks, right? Like we get the interlude where we hang out at the table with Simeon and all right, guys, like it's time to come out of the shadows. Everybody drop your masks.
Well,
Let's
okay, so
report in
that's
about how
where
we go to the next phase.
we were talking about additional arcs. So we have the horseshoe round table, not round, and the guy shows up. But in the prologue, he's essentially a I'm dead, but I'm not dead. I'm a consciousness, but I'm trying to save the
Yeah.
world by destroying the evil. Is that by using evil as my pawn? Or
Come
is
on, like
that
every evil
the Lord
villain is the
Ruler? Am
hero
I
in his own
evil, but
narration. Yeah.
I'm not really evil because I have my own plan?
At least I'm not as bad as that other guy. No, he's just
That however
yeah.
they justify it, and everybody has their own motives. But then, so sidestep, we had that dwarf that was working with the ogre, or not ogres, the the half and half lady. What's her half elf and
Sorry, we got a lot of half breeds. You're talking about
or
Lady
the
Mira's
painting?
first knife. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sarah's orc. I think it's orc friend.
Okay. Anyway,
Mhm.
so the dwarf who makes the weapons for the orcs. So I think we saw part of the orcs here. I don't know if that was the same. We haven't had much of the dwarfs expanded on because Toad's party separated to the winds to do their own things.
Yeah.
And I want to see more of the dwarfs coming down from the mountains. We know the Minotaurs are heading this way because the spirits told them to, so we'll get more of that. We pretty much at the end of this one needed to get the princess back to her lands, but instead we went on a battle.
Well,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and
I
then
mean,
like
we've
literally everything that we thought we understood about the king and everything we have going on just got thrown to the wayside, and now our northern general, who we really like and who son is Tabor, I want to say, who has been fighting
yeah,
alongside Jackson,
yeah.
as well as like I okay, I'm proud of you,
The
Sean. You killed off a character of which I have come to love, and I am very sad that Maxwell Smart had to die. But good for you. I'm glad you killed somebody. That is like,
uh, it-
a
we
true,
won't.
you are a true writer in my eyes if you manage to kill
Main
someone
character
who I love.
immunity has its place, but it can kind of conflict with the story. And if you want me to take you seriously, don't be afraid to kill off some of the cast. Um, yeah, yeah. Sean says it was a hard decision to
Well,
make.
now I'm
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
For his backstory or his time in Ilaria before.
yes,
Okay,
please.
okay, I could see that. I was thinking the opposition would be just kidding. We're right next to this
Uh,
temple, and we
no.
have the daughter of Chanel here, and all this extra stuff. Just
Well, maybe not at tier 3. We can now regrow limbs after we found a way to regrow
or
limbs.
maybe I
So
was
there
listening
is
to a
the
different
power.
book. Oh, okay, never mind. That's a he who fights with monster thing,
Yeah,
where you have a grace period after death, and that was, oh,
you got
our
to play
meta
within the rules of
mage
the
who
realm.
has that wonky perk that I need to go back for, where she essentially died to the toad, killed the toad, leveled up, and got some not exactly escape death mechanic. But yeah. Okay, I'll give you that. He's not coming back. We had our one get out of jail free card.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. Just like any series, though, like it definitely got to be in the mood. And if you're in the mood for some like lit RPG, epic fantasy, grand scale, um, yeah,
I and like that ending are nowadays Game of Thrones killing nice characters makes good writers at least seems to be. So, I Game of Thrones, I in that regard, and not to go too far, did good for season one, where it was like, oh, yeah, this is who we know. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. You love this guy. Head on
right.
the spike. But then
When your
they may
friend,
have
yeah.
gotten a little carried away throughout the, you know, oh man, there's a freaking
Have you listened to the audibles
last
yet?
no, Last Airbender, where there's two tribes and they're fighting forever, and Aang comes up and they're trying to say that, like, oh, your ancestors stole from me and blah, blah, blah. And then the other side, of course, they have the opposite translation where no, your ancestors stole from me. And Aang just comes up with this, like, off the wall, oh, it actually turns out that that was when they were toddlers or they were kids, and it wasn't actually this great resource or epic power. It was a ball, and they were playing a game, and so won. So your 100-year war should be forgotten or forgiven because it was all a bunch of BS, and you don't even know why you're fighting anymore. But that's besides the point. Yeah, I can
So,
appreciate killing people.
well, I think I don't know that we need the walls covered in blood. It's just if you really want that emotional roller coaster to know that an author's not afraid to kill people off, um, makes you take the threats a little bit more seriously instead of like, oh, he's going to get out of this. I'm just waiting to find out how. Um,
Well,
but while we
we
do,
have struggled to, like you said, achieve everything that we have, but we're getting to kind of that tilting point where we have a lot of safety nets. We have the meta mage has her, you know, if you die, you have a chance to be res thing.
mhm,
Jackson has his coat that will keep
he's
healing
got
him
some
after death,
crazy damage reduction stuff too, like
plus
powered
crazy
up
damage
auras.
reduction, plus the
Yeah,
share health ability. Like he's got a lot of potential mitigation and survivability there. And then I'm waiting for it. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm expecting the Zoids and or Captain Planet and
uh,
or Power Rangers
they're
for
trying to
Sarah,
figure out electricity.
where she summoned two of her monster friends to her.
Can you
Uh,
imagine when she unlocks her
and
character sheet though? Like right now, this is
oh,
all before she like.
even you can even touch or play with any of your stats, and she's already
And
got 100
the
on
birthday
deck.
was really well done. I think She Who Befriends Monsters is like 7 or 8. Um, and yeah, like she can't even access her abilities and whatnot, and she's
But
developing
she's
wings to
getting,
fly.
I guess, adaptive mutations because of
Mm-hmm.
them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I like Crink, but he's currently kind of a weak link. Like, I hate to say that Snowball is better,
I don't
but
know,
Snowball gets those
buddy.
ups.
Think of the potential. Like we're just little. She turned 9, right? Just
Yeah.
coming into her own.
And what is
Not
it?
even accessing. Look at how much like
Or how old
Dave
to
and
access character sheet? Because I know 15's age of majority,
I
but
think it's 10.
Jackson's below it. Okay.
Right. I think it's 10.
Okay, so we got 1 year
Um,
before she gets
right.
to go Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
Okay,
And she's she's
thank you, Sean. 10 to access character
there we
sheet.
go. Yeah. So when things get real, this is our hyperbolic time
Oh,
chamber going into the
did
dungeon, ranking up, training.
did I
Though that
mention
just kills
Dave?
off Dave that much sooner. You know, we talk
Or
about his gravestone. He's for
well,
every one
no.
day
Dave
outside, it's 2
has the
weeks in
bond
there.
with the dungeon, and he doesn't age and can't be killed unless the dungeon core is killed.
Okay.
So
Yes, I
now
forgot
he
that.
has the potential to live for quite some time. Not saying things can't hit the fan and or beepity
Hey,
beep 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 beep.
glorious
But
conflict.
yeah, Lori's conflict. Yeah, so that was a nice boon, but then Sean just had to slip it in there where we got his tombstone, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, such a good quote. Okay, fine. You
Hey,
know, you
he's
hope
proven he's willing to kill
that
people off. We know
well,
that there's some
yeah,
tombstone
it's
quotes where it's not just
well,
journal entries.
and not even to mention the whole like I got a kick out of the conversation where Lady Amiri's like, yeah, so I'm pregnant. And he's like, wait, what? I had a vasectomy. And it's like, I didn't think I'd have to explain this to you. She's like, yeah, you were there. That was your other body. And
This is
so
true. I'm a
I
moon elf
and
now.
it was well written, and I'm excited for the additional child. Um, I'm curious for yeah, I mean yeah,
So much potential.
and then like all of our advancements that we were doing in Eris's Rise, as well as
Hmm.
like the chance that you can befriend dungeons, and we know there are other dungeons out there. Reminds me of another
And a
book.
tier 7 dragon.
Okay, I guess the current Frieza or Cell, if you will, is the dragon is waking up.
I don't even
We
know that we're
just
at Cell
pissed,
Saga yet. Probably Frieza.
or isn't?
There's still the master. It goes Frieza, then yeah, there's a lot of sagas. Anyway, continue.
We have the dragon who is awakening, who is one of Simeon's minions, but not really, but kind of sort of, but was epic in her heyday and is going to be coming back and mess stuff up. I assume that is going to be our dungeon core versus dragon is going to save our bacon. Um,
We do
yeah,
get
so we
bacon in
have
this
that.
book.
Oh man, that was another good
Regardless
line.
of how cute
Piggies
those little
are,
piggies are,
bacon
bacon
is
is too
good.
delicious. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Um, and then we have the consciousness that may or may not be Simeon, who is trying to be the puppet master behind the scenes,
No,
who,
that's the master. That's our bloke who's been betrayed twice, pulling the strings, like
yeah, who,
playing this
when
12
I came to
dimensional
Aloria, they
chess.
made sure that I died,
Well, yeah, it was like
but then he came
1300 years
back.
ago. Hmm.
Or, well, he's a thought construct, but if he tries, he could obliterate someone if he really wanted to, but then that would slow down his resurrection or something.
We do get to see the Death Knight and how the Death Knight works, right? Isn't that like at the end of book 1, the resurrection piece?
Uh, that is the end of book one that we defeat him, and then there's a chance for him to pick the class, but if he doesn't, the goop or whatever will be shut off into a different location to resurrect.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, if that's what you're talking about.
We know that there are those game mechanics. Um, Sean says, by the way, there is a hint as who the master, quote, was in the conversation between Dave and Simeon in book 3. I want to go
Hmm.
back and reread the
Uh,
first 3 books after doing book 4.
yeah. I do, but
Thank you.
life's been crazy.
It's quick transition. We'll go over it again at the end of the stream, but um November, busy time of year for everybody, holidays and stuff coming up. We might be shifting around our stream times. We'll try our best to give you guys as much notice as we can. Hopefully, still stick to Sundays. Might just be a little bit later because, wow, it's been busy. And we know you guys are busy, so appreciate you hanging out with us live. And you can always catch it on the replay. Try to keep these archived and up, and eventually podcast.
Yeah.
We still
Yeah,
think a
yeah.
podcast.
We're essentially one
We're
anyway.
essentially a podcast. You
It's
just get to look
just
at our No Shave Novembers we got going on.
sure. We can pretend it was planned. Not that I misplaced my razor in the void of my house. Yeah, we can go with that.
It's probably an Aloria. Life is conflict. Your razor lost. No resurrections, no reses in the series of life. But yeah, keep grinding out those skill points.
So yeah, I was a little baffled when in book 3 the other watcher who came in kind of pieced out.
Mm-hmm.
But Sean has done a really good job for incorporating the master as well as the current watcher who's still there is influencing things. Um,
We don't even know all the guys from Earth yet, potentially,
we do
right?
not, and at the end there, I wish I had it or listened to it more recently, but it mentioned 12, or we knew from previous books 12 in total. He then goes on to say that there are so many, one who is hidden and one who is asleep.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if the asleep one was the dragon because I thought that she was now awake because it mentions her preparations.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one who he couldn't see, I yet again assumed it was Lady Amiri because she has a connection to the true gods, which shields her from him. Um, Gotta go to sleep. That's fine. Thank you for stopping by and hanging out with us. Bye.
Yeah, I'm about ready for a
Um,
nap too.
so yeah, we don't even know all the people who came. Another thing that I guess they are pretty busy and it makes sense with time and space, but Ben and Jerry's ice cream, the item that just about fried Dave's mind as he tried to analyze it, that can pop up their house they didn't use. And I understand why, because now they have a home as well as they're better incorporated. And Dave's got his Google power and they're busy. And Lady Amiri's building, sentient tree hands and feet and doing everything else. So they're busy, but
We're
I
building an epic party. Can you imagine just this
oh
town as everybody
but
continues to like
that's the thing.
rank
At
up?
the end of this book, it said, "Hey, thanks for playing. Tutorial over. You started off as a sheriff, then you became a baron, and then you also became, I can't remember the word, consort or whatever. So you've got that connection. Just kidding. You get to control all of the armies." And there's some other lawful title thrown in there.
Scattered from the
And
bottom down
then
here.
confidant or whoever who is of the northern armies is now the king. And then what I didn't quite understand, so Jackson is supposed to take over, Eris's Rise or whatever, our new town we're building, but he can't until he's of age. I guess okay, the
They're
general
not
wouldn't
afraid to
be
do
a
things.
inherited position. I guess is where I was confused because I was thinking for the king,
Mm,
because he says his son to take over his lands and his holding. Well, when the
mhm.
king dies in a older medieval setting, I would think line of succession. But as we
They didn't
know,
have that.
they
Yeah,
don't do that. So now at all. Okay,
because he
answered
has
my
a
own question.
daughter. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and then we
We're
run into
scaling up for
that
some epic,
of,
epic
we
combat.
might run into the Game of Thrones style thing, which all in all, like I'm excited for the way it's growing and developing, but at the same time, I kind of don't care in the sense that or our guy who died, Max, came from a different location and essentially fled from there, which is why he has the class he does, where speed is a big factor. And where did he come from? And then we've got these pirates who are coming over the seas, and we've got, our meta mage who just learned the language for the pirates. And then we've got Jackson who's going off to the princess's land. And then we've got Ricard who's going to go back to his Minotaur's people with Lady Amiri, and then
Yeah.
Ninja
Yeah.
Assassin. Anyway, so like enjoying
I'm ready.
I'm
I'm
enjoying the
ready.
politics, which is hard for me to say, but I'm
Hold up.
also
Hold up.
excited for more expansion. I guess is the
And
short of it.
that is one of the nicest compliments that I think Peter can give, because going back and thinking about our previous geek outs, all his least favorite books were the ones that delve more into the politics. You want your action, you want your combat, you want your shiny superpowers. And I don't think we've asked the question, was there enough combat for you in this book? Should we visit that now? Was there enough
So
combat in
I
this book
I
for
would
you,
have to
Peter?
say yes.
Tell me
Well,
more.
no, there's never enough. But
Uh,
yes, it was satisfactory. There was a lot of combat, and why it was so grand or great for me is everything. We're getting a lot more solidity in our builds. So Jackson, yeah, he leveled up, but throughout the dungeon crawl through the sewer with the princess, he ends up, or after the fact, he ends up actually getting his class, which unlocks a lot, and he gets his additional epic moment killing the frog lock, which I appreciate the naming structure and theme there. So he gets a lot of solidity there. And then for Lady Amiri, she gets her, solidity for her ninja assassin as she's talking with, Dragon Fist, elf guy, can't think of his name. Um, and he essentially goes on this philosophy thing about like, I could help you, I'll do what you order, but I wouldn't recommend it. The only way to see where you should achieve is to look inside your soul. I butchered the quote. Amazing quote. Go find it. I'll find it. But then she, finally is coming to terms with, I am, this is my world. But that development, that beautiful character growth goes on to be very combative and combat oriented because we assemble our blades, we train, and then we go on our secret mission and we assassinate a couple people, we orchestrate our team, and she has a very wonky team dynamic, but I love it. And yeah, it's a wide variety of skills, which is the only way you're ever going to be able to succeed. And then we get Sarah, who was just, oh man, like cute as a button, just itching for a fight. Where yet again, Dragon Fist elf that I can't remember his name, as they're going to the mess hall, and they're all supposed to be training. She's like, "Oh, I was hoping you would have attacked me." Um, hey, Carlos, welcome. Uh, but then, she's always itching for a fight, and for her, it's not exactly combat, but it's progressing, and due to her monster friends, it's kind of changing her nature. So the potential for development there, as well as we get to see, oh, Dave does a lot of other stuff, but then he gets into bringing the cat to the dungeon, which wasn't super exciting, but we get to see he has a little fight scene there where he does a stage of the survival level by himself, as well as the epic spider guy who we fight from the other world at the end there, as well as the Baron. Excuse me. And then or well, I guess for the meta mage, it wasn't so much combat oriented, but it was like I thoroughly enjoyed the development of her. Oh, I can't think of the word. It's not rune magic. Enchantment. I enjoyed her enchantment where she's making bags of holding. She makes the SSBs, the shared spatial bags, as well as she pulls out the shaping of Dave's spell to save their bacon in the dungeon run. And then she ends up getting the crazy speed power, so to speak, for running back to the capital. Um, enchanting. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, so for her, it wasn't so much as a combat, I guess, glory, but it was still, yeah. And then I thoroughly enjoy the conversation with her mentor about the small talk. And he's like, well, based off your small talk, I'm not going to be here for so much longer. You need to figure it out for yourself. And through the arrogance of youth or yeah. So I guess that's really one theme that keeps coming through that I need to get better and worse about expressing in my own life is preconceived notions or understandings can actually be a hindrance. For example, with Dave, he has a theory or ideas of how video games should work, and it ends up holding him back because he's not seeing what's in front of him. For me, I have a tendency to kind of overcomplicate things because I have an idea of how it should go versus while executing. Oh, it's been said a couple times. There's a TikTok about it where it's like step one, make a plan. Step two, expect the plan to go off the rails. Step three, throw away the plan. So, yeah.
Words to live by. It's something that I can appreciate about stories is like when they are all epic and awesome and everybody wants them on their team, like is it believable? Does it make sense? And it kind of makes you wonder, it's like, okay, why is the master, why is Simeon's boss trying to recruit the Nelsons? And it's because of like just
Potential.
look at all they've accomplished, right? And it wasn't easy mode. There was a
Well,
struggle.
it's just a different perspective
Mm-hmm.
because everybody, you see it time and time again with all of his serfs or whatever, where he's like, yeah, if you're here, you're free. If you're here, I'm going to share my knowledge. If you're here, I'm going to level you. And it's the opposite of what their base understanding is. Um,
Yeah, we're
but
in this
yeah,
together.
it's also similar yet not to Dragon Ball, where the philosophy behind Dragon Ball is every time, essentially yin yang. Anytime that you resurrect Goku, there has to be a equal and opposite evil that is birthed or brought into your solar system or world. So they're powering up, they're getting stronger. Um, our main boy Dave is pretty beefy right now with all of his buffs and everything and his connection to the dungeon. And we know there are bigger baddies just waiting to crawl down our throats, as well as, political intrigue and problems with transitions. Um,
Yeah, there's these huge powerful factions and people that we're going up against, but also just like looking at the magic that our Froglock had being so like I don't know, it was like what, tier 2, tier 3, causing this kind of chaos. Imagine
well,
when we
but
start dealing with tier 7 dragons.
that was a weird, unique thing where he's like, you could have had this power. I was just channeling a fraction of his power, and this is what I was able to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was directly him.
Yes.
Carlos, because they forced to seek the balance. Very
Use the
true.
force. Use the force. Or the crazy meta magic that we do. Um yeah. A
Yeah,
lot of
since
fun.
we already know she's getting a book, it's not going to happen. But I would have not been surprised if she accidentally tried to put a bag inside a bag or enchant a bag into a bag
Come
and
on, come on. Her
got
intelligence
blown into
stat is too
oblivion.
high for that.
Well,
It's
yeah,
Dave we
but
gotta worry about
yeah, I guess that's true.
as he goes and tries to cast magic at Gunpowder.
Well, I think he gained some protections after bonding with the dungeon core,
Yeah,
or at least it seemed like it. Where now
yeah.
we just have to worry about the kids being influenced. Because Jackson really hasn't told anybody about the voice, and Dave hasn't had a chance to talk to Jackson about it.
Yeah. See, we're not the only ones to have the voices in our heads
You
telling us about
know,
our crazy epic powers. We just have
side
to use it.
note, it's been kind of an odd phenomenon, but I always thought the expression "the silence is deafening" didn't make sense. But for the past several years, I always have an audiobook going, and so and or music, because I sleep with a headband and I put my audiobook on a sleep timer. So I go to sleep to voices. I have my Betty turn on my audiobook when I wake up. I get into the shower. I have a shower speaker that I listen to the book. I get to my car. I attach it to my car speakers. I go to You Didn't Hear This. Please ignore all of the following work, and I listen to it, and then I come home and do it all over again. And yeah, it's just kind of weird, but I now understand the silence is deafening.
Uh, yeah, Sean says, sorry guys, gotta run errands for the wife. Glad you enjoyed the book. We really did, and appreciate you taking time to hang out with us and answer our questions.
And that, I guess, is another great reason why people should pick up this book is the relationships are believable, tangible, and no one is perfect. So
Yeah.
yeah, really have a lot of respect for the way Sean's developing the characters and the relationship. And normally that's also super high praise from me because that's the point where I'm like, either get to beep in or I don't
Uh,
care. Why aren't you killing stuff? But for this one,
You've
I've
gotten
enjoyed the
Peter to
process.
enjoy stopping and smelling the roses and the details. He hears me ranting and raving about and all the other epic fantasy series that I want. He's like, no, freaking lit RPG. I want cats shooting lasers out of their eyes and action and yeah, sorry.
I want to possibly incorporate that book. I need you to
Dungeon
look at
Crawler
the
Carl.
potential schedule and talk to
Yes,
you about it.
yes, yes. And as always, love to get suggestions and requests from you guys about which books we work back into the rotation. But yes, I've had a lot of fun recently with Dungeon Carl or Dungeon Crawler Carl, even though they spell it incorrectly.
I don't know if you can
Laser
say
beams.
incorrect.
Totally can. Anyway, um,
Well, yeah. It's kind of like English is exactly like my work scenario at this point in time. There's a rule, and then there's what the beep happens, and or how to
yes.
break the rules, because I want to win.
Yeah. Rules are challenges, right? Like, hey, how can I get around this and manipulate it to
Oh, and
be
that's another
yeah,
quote that's
laser beams.
incorporated in, I want to say 3 and 4. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission.
Shameless plug. Peter's been killing it on finally pulling some of these quotes and
Yes.
putting them on TikTok, and they've been going up on YouTube Shorts too, right?
Yeah. I guess some of them are a little more explicit or raunchy that I've been saving just for TikTok. And then the ones that are a little more like philosophical and meaty, I've been making sure make it to YouTube Shorts.
Fair
Just
enough.
cause
Fair enough. You
I
trying
I
to
could be
say we're
biased, but what's
keeping
that?
it family friendly? Um, we try, but yes, so many good books, so many good moments in life. Um, yeah, yeah. Life in Exile. Really enjoying the series. Looking forward to working the next couple books into next year's streams. Um, what final thoughts on book 4? There's so much we
Oh
didn't
man,
cover,
like
but
yeah. The way we left it off, we have gained a lot of power-ups. There is so much potential for everything.
mhm.
It was a good book. Um, yeah, I not
we
sure
need
what else
to
to say, but
this
also didn't
series
cover everything.
this series is definitely one that makes me think we need to do the recap, cover everything in the series up to the current point. Maybe we can try to just
Well,
work some of those
and this
in there
one
because they're like you
is
said, you need the board and the graph to be like, okay, follow the foreshadowing through here and
well,
like
that's where this one's weird because normally for those, I would think chronological. You know, you're level 1, you're level 10. But for this one, like I was saying earlier, it's so
over
unique
9,000.
where it is character driven, but it's a family of 5. So it's 5 character driven, but then
Five and a
it's
half.
also plot driven in an aspect because I'm playing God and manipulating the pieces behind the scenes. But then, the environmental changes of who we thought was a king is actually creating or committing adultery or whatever, however you say that, has his mistress on the side, which might overthrow the government, or not government, the kingdom as we know it. Just kidding. Big evil giant spider, stab stab. Now I'm on top. Um, or no, actually, it was before that. It was there can be only one. You are not even worthy of being a bug under my boot. I will stomp you into the ground. Just kidding. Why am I dying?
Wahahaha.
Yeah. I feel like his evil villain monologue could have been pumped up a notch, but it was also good. It was appreciative.
acting like we don't just sit around and work on our evil villain monologues. Like if you had to
I
on the
think.
spot deliver an
Oh no,
evil
that was our
villain
last book we
monologue.
did. That was Savage Dominion, where he's like, "Do they send the little whatevers to a evil villain school so they
Hmm.
can learn how to talk to people like they're dirt?"
Yes, actually. Thanks to the pandemic, you can actually sign up for it online for 12 easy payments of see the affiliate link down below. Um, uh, Series is a lot of fun. I enjoyed re-listening to it, at least the fourth book over the weekend as I was adulting, trying to get everything we need to do. And for guys like us, that's also what makes it such a great book because it's relatable, being family guys.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you know. And speaking of family guys and times, thank you, fellow geeks, for joining us, hanging out, geeking with us in the chat. Next week, Pete, we're aiming for 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, life's getting weird. We're going to be rotating to a 8 p.m. Eastern on Sunday. Next one up, Sunday, November 14th, 8 p.m. Eastern, is Hunt, which is book one in Lion's Lineage. I'm going to butcher this first name, Rohan Humberlerkey and Dakota Kraut. I'm going to, you know what? I think I almost prepped this, but then I missed my cue. Ba ba ba. Survey says
This is Audible. Hunt, Lion's Lineage, Book 1. Written by Rohan Hublicka and Dakota Kraut. Narrated by
Rohan Hooliger and Dakota Kraut. Um, so I haven't gone back through it recently, but it is like any of the book ones, they can be a starting point or a launching platform, but like Dakota Kraut, the reason all of his Divine Dungeon universe series are amazeballs is, or sorry, yeah, that's it's not provocative, are amazing is because of the Easter eggs and the connections. When I went back or when I went through book one here, I didn't feel like there was as many, but it's definitely building up for the potential. It didn't quite hit my level of pungent. Like it wasn't like entering Cal's realm and you have entered the pungent. But it was good. It was a great addition to the Divine Dungeon universe. It definitely opens up a lot of potential for the future, and the series says it all because we had Arturian Archives, which is an amazing addition to the Divine Dungeon universe, which was our Sunshine and Love Pillow Mage, backstory continuing throughout the series. And then here is Lion's Lineage, which we get to see a snippet throughout the Divine Dungeon. We get to see more and it flourish throughout the Completionist Chronicles, but it's exciting to see the origin of the Lion's Lineage, which short version is in his first series, Divine Dungeon. There is the Lion Kingdom and the Phoenix Kingdom for the human controlled territories. So, yeah, it's going to be an origin story. It can be the first book in the series if you want for you, and yeah, I'm excited. I always enjoy Dakota Crowd stuff and the Planet
Yeah,
Space.
yeah. I think we've probably done like 20 plus of our geek outs, our Divine Dungeon, Dakota Kraut related series. And that's something I can really appreciate about the different um, spin-offs, um, playing in the Divine Dungeon universe series. You can start anywhere. Arturian Archives is also a lot of fun. Um, yeah, looking forward
And
to it.
then I do have the one after that on here. I haven't actually put it together. After that, Geek Out 105 is going to be Magus by Demetrio Kirkures, and that is November 21st, 8 p.m. Eastern as well. So this one is somewhat, but not really connected to Sean Oswald, as in I believe they know each other in real life. But this one takes reality on a separate, unique twist. What is exciting about the Upper Cosmos series is A, talking animals. Our corgi is awesome. B, it essentially goes on kind of like a multiverse string of you are in a level of the world where we get a lot of our fantasy that actually comes from somewhere else. So, in my humble opinion, book two is lot better than one. I appreciated one. One had a lot of potential for build up, but one had a little bit more to do with like economics and building up your financial wealth in this lit RPG, so to speak. Book two had a lot more combat, and oh man, the great reveals and really becoming more involved and in love with all of the characters as a whole. Yeah,
Peter's not always the most patient when it comes to building up the story, but I think a lot of readers, you need to really get them excited about it right quick.
well, so
But
that's one
it's
thing
worth the payoff, right? Like,
he does really well is in Berserker, he does like interludes where I normally don't like the we start at the beginning and then or we start at the end and then it's like, oh, let me tell you how I got here. It does it where it's progressing a scene in the future, but they're in snippets and interludes as if he's sitting at a campfire telling people his story for our main progression from where we're at the actual beginning. So it's done very uniquely, and I enjoyed it for a different flavor, so to speak. Um, it was just a lot more economically involved, which I've never been great at. So.
yeah. I'm looking forward to geeking out over the book. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I think he's already through book 3. Just Audible's a little bit slower on the release.
Yeah, and
Um,
I can appreciate that because if you have the written form, there are a lot of people who enjoy that. Um,
mhm,
yeah, I rather have the voices in my head.
it's true. A lot of the narrators can make a lot better voices than I can. Just finished a sound booth theater book, and their production is just crazy. Um,
I yeah, yeah.
we need to check out
But
their app.
that's where like people need to appreciate the difference in timing and everything. So like
Hmm.
a single voice actor is good. Like there are some that are amazing,
Hmm.
but a single voice actor versus sound booth theater's whole team is kind
Hmm.
of like a movie versus like Lucas Arts Studio or
Hmm.
Disney, where they have, you know, a team of orchestra of musicians and they have a team of anyway, good stuff all around. I'm super excited to talk about Magnus, their book two in the Epicosmos. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a good addition. I'm glad I got through book one. I will be continuing the series, and November 21st, 8 p.m. Hopefully, you guys will be joining us to talk about it as well.
And keep throwing those suggestions our way about what you guys want to see in December. And then 2022. Fun times. Fun times. Appreciate it. What else, Pete?
That's the rundown. Shifting to 8 p.m. Eastern. Sorry for daylight saving time being on Sunday. Wait, has it happened yet?
Yeah, happened last
Yeah, it
night.
happened. Okay. I was pretty
I
sure
think
it
so.
happened. Anyway.
We'll see when we wake up tomorrow if it happened or not. Groundhog's Day. Are we rolling it forward? Are we rolling it back? Doesn't
Or wait.
matter. Your phone auto updates. Set your
Yeah, it's when I
calendars
get in my
for
car and I start freaking out as I'm supposed to be somewhere.
yes.
Or when
Yes.
I'm anyway. Thank you everybody for geeking out with us. Hope to geek out with you here soon. Bye.
Bye.